Welcome to Think Tech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Lori Wingard.
In our show tonight, we'll take a tour of the high-tech Verizon wireless switch facility that permits you to make cell phone calls on Verizon in Hawaii.
It's a secured facility, so we can't tell you where it is, but we can show you what it looks like and talk about how it works and the technology involved.
We visited the switch one morning last week and had a tour with Ed Wright, a data solution engineer at Verizon Wireless, and Cedric, who runs the switch facility. Don't get me wrong, the switch is not like a light switch. It's an electronic switch. It's the electronic heart of all Verizon voice and data cell phone service in Hawaii.
This is an amazing facility, and it was a real treat to have the tour. It's only a few months old and spanking new in all particulars. It's certainly industrial, but it's also noticeably clean and bright and well designed. You could practically eat off the floor. The equipment rooms were spacious and open, and lots of space had been left for future expansion.
There are redundant power and protection systems of all kinds, and it was impressive how much care Verizon had taken to make sure that cell phone service on its network doesn't fail. It was, in a sense, beautiful, spotless, and even elegant, reflecting the $40 million of money, care, and concern that Verizon has invested in the switch.
For security purposes, we were unable to film the outside of the building or the insides of the critical spaces and switch equipment. But we did have a walkthrough of all those spaces, and we were able to talk with Ed Wright a few days later to fill in the gaps.
There were maybe 4 or 5 people in this sanctuary of sanctuaries. There were computer monitors all around the room, running sophisticated monitoring programs on all kinds of systems. No two were the same, all different, all checking out different things. It reminded me of the Hawaiian Electric, control room out in Kapolei, which is sort of like that. Lots of monitors. Doesn't take too many people to watch them all, but they watch everything that way. And they can not only check on things, but actually change things if things are need to be a little tuned. And that was the way it was in Kapolei, and that was certainly the way it was in the sanctuary of sanctuaries, right next to the main brain in the switch. God, that was something. Anyway, I was very impressed. They were sharp as a tack, too, all of them, and you could tell that they were sort of glued to the data, glued to the monitors, making sure that they were aware of every change on every screen. It was really interesting to see that.
And remember, those guys have a whole fleet of people out there who are out there actually at the cell sites running alarms, and because there's a lot of alarms that aren't critical. If a battery, if a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply, which kind of fails over, there's warning equipment on there to say, hey, we may have an issue, battery needs to be changed. So there's a whole fleet of those people who are out managing the network daily. Whether that's somebody tries to steal the copper or whatever that is, those guys, you have that whole fleet of people out there who are managing feed on the network. But then you have these guys who are kind of supervising, making sure that they're getting the right resources out to the right time.
Yeah, totally mission critical. You felt it walking all the way through the switch facility, but certainly you felt it there. That these guys, had a huge burden, huge responsibility, and that they accepted it. But let's sort of take a tour, if you will, through the facility now, a word tour.
Okay.
So we come in and we find a very brand new, clean as a pin facility. We find a facility where literally you could eat off the floor. It was that clean. And we find moisture sensors everywhere in the facility, in the possibility that there would be a leak or rainwater or anything gets on those floors, then your guys in the sanctum would know about it, and somebody could do something before the water level rose to a level that would be a problem for the equipment. Lots of tunnels and passageways going from one element to the other, each element separated and secured from all the others. I've never been in a building like that. I mean, I doubt the Pentagon has that level, that level of security. What do you think?
I've never been in the Pentagon. I'm waiting for an invitation, ready to go. But a lot of it is you think about that equipment, and we have redundant equipment, and you want to make sure you have the human element. People make mistakes, and not intentionally, things happen. We do have, like you saw, very clean, no food in these areas, no water. But, you do need to let people in to service equipment, so you want to make sure that it's segregated. If you have 4 levels, that, only one person's in one area, that the worst thing can happen is you lose one. Well, you got, you only need one, but you got 4. Mm-hmm. So if one goes down or someone makes a mistake, you can contain it to that area. We look really highly about things. I mean, it's an electronic facility, a lot of electronics. You could potentially have, fires. There's all kinds of things. So you really have to think about isolating things out. How do you control? We work very closely with the fire marshal to make sure these different areas are fully separated, that you could have a small incident somewhere, which we've never had. But you really got to think about the fact that, okay, what if one of your providers has to come in? Does that give them free reign of it? Well, we trust them, but really that overall picture says that we have a very careful procedure so that everything is well documented, well taken care of. And as you can see, just walking in, I know you've had experiences with telco and wires. We pride ourselves that everything's labeled, where it's coming from, where it's going from, that's tracked. There's everything that has to be put in. Someone else has to validate it. So it really helps you in a time if something goes out. You're not guessing. You know exactly what's connected to what, what's the failover path. And it really cuts down that time to resolution because you're not guessing at anything. You're going in saying, okay, this point and this point, pull the fiber, replace it, or replace the equipment on the end of it.
Yeah, I remember that room. I think that was one of the first rooms we saw where you connected with the telephone companies, the carriers, and the carrier representatives were allowed into that room, but that's the only room they could get into, and they could see where their wires were being relayed into the switch itself, and that was neat as a pin too, with air conditioning and fire retardant devices. Everything was plastic, as I remember, plastic conduits. So that
the fiber, yeah,
and fiber for everything. And the remarkable thing about that room was that the actual equipment, the electronic equipment, was not all that big. Because we're talking about high tech here, we're talking about electronics. It doesn't have to be all that big. And the other thing is that there was plenty of room, and this is throughout throughout the entire switch facility, there was room to double it in case there were more, carriers seeking more connectivity. You could easily double what was in that room, so there's plenty of room to grow.
Yeah.
That was a very impressive room. That was the first room we saw, as I recall.
Well, and we got to think, you talked a little Moore's Law. Technology is moving very quickly. So we do, we have a very strong plan to support customers who have older equipment. Because some people keep their phones 5 years. We don't.
Not you and me, no.
6 months, we got to have a new one. But, we have to take care of them. And then you see the new technologies today. We have the 3G, which is amazing. We have 4G LTE. But really, we've already started working on LTE Advanced. We don't talk that a lot, but that's the next generation. And, there's always room. We look at what Apple's done to innovate. No one saw that coming. I can tell you the competitors didn't see that come on. So we want to make sure that we're always positioned to give our customers options. So we support all the platforms, and we support all the operating systems, whether that's Windows, whether that's Mac, whether we have what nice devices that do Wi-Fi. So if you want to do Linux or any breed you want. So we want to be able to react quickly. So as new technologies come, we can bring them in, put them out to our customers, and we're not scrambling going, where's it going to go?
Well, in a competitive market, you can do nothing less than that because people are so wild about their phones and about new phones. They got to wait online all around the block for the new phone, just like I did.
I remember that day.
September 8th it was. It was a Tuesday.
And now the Razor on the 11th. It never stops.
The cell phone, only 20 years old, is one of the most miraculous devices of our lifetimes, and we have had many miraculous devices in those years. But we don't think much of the network technology and backbone behind our cell phones. We take it for granted. The Verizon switch reminds us how complex and mission-critical these things are, to Verizon and to all of us.
We haven't seen the switches from the other cell phone carriers in Hawaii, but suffice to say that if they are up to the level of the switch at Verizon, they are very sophisticated indeed, and our cell phone systems are well protected.
You can think, well, that's nice, but it's all behind the scenes and it really doesn't matter to me. But it does matter. Smartphones, iPads, and tablets are carrying more and faster voice and data than we ever anticipated, and the network and backup systems for those devices are more important than we ever imagined. They are rapidly becoming our primary telecom system, the backbone of our daily life and business and society.
So it does affect us, and yes, it's critically important to us. We need to know that Verizon and the other wireless carriers are doing their best, using the best systems, equipment, and technology they can get to make sure their networks are robust, reliable, and redundant. Because if they don't do that, we, as an island state, remote from the repair and replacement capabilities on the mainland, will be at great risk. Really, what would you do without your cell phone?
Now for our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
ThinkTech's 4 to 5 p.m. weekday drive time radio series on KGU 760 AM started a few weeks ago, covering business, Asia, technology, energy, the arts, and government. Tune in to 760 AM every weekday at 4 p.m. and raise your awareness on ThinkTech Radio.
And on Tuesday, December 6th, will present a luncheon program entitled How Healthy is Healthcare in Hawaii, featuring a number of executives in the healthcare industry. We'll have 2 panels, one on healthcare delivery, moderated by State Senator Josh Green, chair of the Senate Health Committee, and the other on healthcare economics, moderated by Ginny Pressler of Hawaii Pacific Health.
We're trying to bring important healthcare minds to the table. I think that's what this is really about. And we want to see the best ideas blossoming in front of people, and we want the community, the business community, the healthcare community, the community at large, to come with their questions that will put pressure on our panelists as experts to really tell us what's next for healthcare.
Mm-hmm. There's so much going on in healthcare. What I'd like to see is for us to start a dialogue, and this won't be the end of it. I think it's going to raise as many questions as it's going to answer, and that means we need to then continue the dialogue. And we're going to have some key people there. We're not going to have everybody that needs to be at the table. We couldn't fit them all in a 2-hour session, but we're going to have some key people who can have an active interchange of ideas about what's going on in healthcare and how we can make things better in the state.
Well, we took the approach, since it's a massive, Ginny and I were talking about this, it's a massive issue, healthcare and healthcare reform. So we're focusing in 2 areas, health economics and healthcare delivery system. Now, of course, there's incredible overlap. We have executives from our largest insurer. We have the CEO of one of our biggest and most important hospitals. We have actual providers and experts in those areas. Any one of them probably could have gone from one panel to the other. But this way, we can let people come and have their most pressing questions be focused on the group that is being moderated. In this case,
Yeah.
Ginny.
Yeah, the first one I'll be moderating will be more the big picture, what's happening with health transformation on a global perspective, and then getting more into the specifics of those who are actually dealing with the delivery of healthcare in the community.
Right, and we want you to be able to ask hard questions, and we want people who are really in the trenches giving you direct answers. So we want to be able to say, what's going on over at Hawaii Pacific Health? And we have Ginny, and we have Art Ushijima, who we can say, what will it mean 10 years from now at Queens campus? We have a provider, Dr. Tansale, who is a pediatrician and an internist, and she's dealing with the day-to-day effects of this healthcare transformation. So I think it would really be a great time for people to come with tough questions for our panelists. I'd like to say to our doctor, for instance, do you think you'll be able to still practice as a freestanding physician in the next 10 years? And I'd like to ask Mr. Ushijima, what will Queens be doing to address this changing landscape where we're being told focus on preventive health care and not on hospitalizations? As a physician myself, I really want answers to these questions, and it's going to be a great discussion because we have the people there on this panel and as moderators that aren't afraid to mix it up. And I think that's what anyone who comes is going to see.
And on my panel with Beth Giesting and Dr. Thomas Sang and Coral Andrews, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about how are we going to organize all of these components. We've got the Hawaii Health Information Exchange, we've got the Hawaii Health Insurance Exchange called the Connector, we've got the Governor's Office on Health Transformation, we got Health IT, we got all these pieces that need to be coordinated. How are we going to do that and make it work for the state? One thing is for sure, we don't know for sure what it's going to look like. Things are happening as we speak and evolving. We know for sure that we need to focus on better quality and controlling healthcare costs and getting patients better access to care in a timely manner and having patients be more active as partners in their healthcare. How we make that happen, how we coordinate the various aspects of healthcare in the community, I think there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to come up.
And healthcare is a budget buster for people's businesses. I take to heart, I'm still a clinician. I still go back and do my work in the ER every weekend. But when I take a look through the lens of the legislature and our budgets, that's just a fact. All of our businesses are going to have to engage in the healthcare reform discussion. Otherwise, the costs are going to continue to double every 10 years. And sooner or later, it will destroy business. So I think it's good to be engaged now. Hold us to account. Help us to ask the right questions, because at the end of the day, each of these businesses that comes to a forum like this knows that some large part of their budget is going to be devoted to healthcare.
And it's ideal having the legislature work talking together with the business community. We need that kind of dialogue going on. We're looking forward. We hope we have a good turnout because I think it will be worthwhile, and hopefully it will create new ideas and questions that we're going to need further follow-up on for subsequent sessions to keep this alive and growing.
Yeah. And I would say if you've got questions about healthcare in Hawaii, this panel is positioned better than any I've seen to respond to them. So I really encourage you to fill up our room and come and ask those questions of these experts. This is the group.
On January 26, 2012, the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and ThinkTech will present the annual Deal of the Year Awards, celebrating the best deals of the year for entrepreneurs in Hawaii. Sign up for these programs on hvca.org.
And now here's Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, with this week's Spensation.
This past Thursday, we had the Entrepreneur of the Year program, and that was really totally successful. I have to say, Bill, it was one of the best ever. And I guess my question for you is, what did we learn in all of that? What was happening there? What was the magic in that program? We'll put the tape on next week, okay, and people can see exactly what happened. But now, in the just a few days later, in retrospect, what was going on there that made it so great?
Well, I think people didn't know what to expect, for one thing. The governor is always a surprise, and he definitely got people amped up. He was so excited about his trade deal with China, and his characterization of Hawaii as much more than a crossroad. He also had some interesting news under his hat that he teased us with, didn't tell us what it was, but I think it really boosted his confidence. And I think he was happy to be part of the, as he called it, the ritual, which I think it is. It's once you've done this for several years, just like our Deal of the Year program in January. But this is much more personal. The entrepreneurs, they don't get a lot of news, a lot of coverage. Most of them are nose to the grindstone. But all of them had, some really heartfelt remarks. Anton Krucky and the opportunities that have been created for our local folks, and it just was a real warm, fuzzy feeling, I guess.
It was indeed, yeah. I mean, there was a certain je ne sais quoi in the air, and maybe it was partly because he was there and he's so passionate, and he laid a great foundation for the actual awards. Maybe it was because of the way you described the awards themselves and what it meant, put them in the landscape, in the economic landscape, and the way you introduced, the individual awardees. And maybe it was because the way the awardees responded, to your introduction and to the presentation. And maybe it was because the crowd, as you say, was so warm and fuzzy and responsive. They really liked it. They liked being there. It was more than just a luncheon program. It was an experience, a collective experience. We have to do that again and again.
Well, we will.
Bill.
We will.
Yeah. So congratulations on a great program.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Bill. And here's our co-working entrepreneurs, Richung Fujihira and Tony Stanford, to keep us current on their latest adventures at the Box Jelly.
First, I want to say Entrepreneur of the Year.
Hello, Entrepreneur of the Year.
Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yes.
So this Thursday, we were invited down to the event hosted by Hawaii Venture Cap Association, and we were honored enough to win the Youth Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I remember last year being in the crowd and watching. I was like, one day I want to be up there. And a year later, being up there was like,
yeah,
surreal.
It's still surreal. But it's a great honor, and just seeing the other class of people that won other awards is just, it makes me want to set that bar even higher and work even harder.
Yeah.
And so it's
a real honor to be in
Yes.
such company. And I just want to thank the Hogan program and our mentors and our parents for helping us out.
absolutely tenfold on that. And so earlier this week, we also had a workshop where we had a couple lawyers come down and talk about the logistics of how you go about doing crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a good insight on how anyone could jump in on this.
There are a lot of pieces to crowdfunding that people aren't aware of and legalities. And there's a bill being passed through right now to make it easier for crowdfunding to be possible. So that was important. And then on Wednesday, we hosted Aloha Startups and Startup Weekend. We did a mixer, and we had a really good turnout, a lot of new faces,
turnout.
a lot of smiles, a lot of good conversations going on. So it's exactly the type of thing that we like to see here at the Box Jelly.
Absolutely. We also had the Entrepreneur Foundation's director come down.
Yeah, Leanne came down from the Entrepreneur Foundation, and she gave the keynote talking about how to build social into your company from the very beginning. And yeah, it was a really good time, and we're looking forward to doing more things of that nature. Yeah, some other good news that we can't quite bring out yet. So
Stay tuned till next week.
yeah,
Once it's finalized, we'll bring it out. But
Yeah.
until then, work the way you live.
yeah, a place to build,
Place to work,
place to meet.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of Think Tech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Nico on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii. Congratulations to Galen. He also received an Entrepreneur of the Year award at our program on November 17th.
Oceanit, another local tech company, is one of Hawaii's largest and most diversified science and engineering companies.
Don't forget ThinkTech. Please help us out by making a contribution on thinktechhawaii.com. It'll help us with all the things we do to raise public awareness about tech, energy diversification, and globalism in Hawaii. Thank you so much. Okay, Lori, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Lori does. For additional times, check out OC16.tv.
You bet, Jay. For lots more Think Tech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on Think Tech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor. Help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Lori Wingard. Aloha, everyone.